Two guys in police uniforms stood at the gate, with HOA emblazoned on their jackets. "Sir, this property contravenes HOA regulations," the bald individual remarked with a smile. My heart accelerated. I did not reside in a homeowners association. He responded affirmatively. What transpired subsequently? They were completely unprepared. The events commenced on a tranquil Tuesday morning, characterized by motionless air, leisurely chirping birds, and a planet seemingly inhaling deeply. I sat on my rear porch, enjoying coffee while basking in the warmth of the sun on my face. The countryside's hum was tranquil, nearly excessively so, resembling the serenity preceding a tempest. Subsequently, I observed them. Two men stood at my front gate, clad in full police uniforms, tactical belts burdened with equipment, and badges glistening in the morning light. The conspicuous white letters, HOA, embroidered on their chests were menacing. Initially, I perceived them as law enforcement officers, possibly sheriff's deputies. Yet there was an unsettling quality to their demeanor, too rigid, too contrived, as if they were exerting excessive effort to appear authoritative. The bald individual initiated the movement. He was big and robust, adorned with mirrored sunglasses that mirrored the sun's glare. His jaw was positioned in a manner indicative of his accustomedness to achieving his desires. He advanced and struck my gate with the palm of his hand, sufficiently forceful to cause the metal to rattle. The other man, lean and angular, remained at a distance, holding a clipboard. His eyes were keen and analytical, surveying my property as though he were conducting an inventory. I scowled. My stomach churned. I did not reside in a homeowners association community. My residence occupied 2 acres of private property, which I had vigorously contested to retain upon my parents' demise. No homeowners association had ever approached it. No individual possessed the authority to attempt. "Sir," the bald individual stated, his tone as frigid and unyielding as steel, "this property contravenes HOA regulations. We are here to evaluate penalties and initiate repossession." My heart began to race within my chest. I tightened my grasp on the coffee mug. "I do not reside in a homeowners association," I stated plainly. The bald individual grinned, a slender, predatory smile that elicited a sense of discomfort. He advanced a step toward the gate. His mirrored sunglasses returned my own visage to me. He stated that you do now. The slender individual advanced, brandishing the clipboard as though it were a weapon. "Last week, this community was included into the Pine Ridge HOA," he stated matter-of-factly. "Noncompliance with regulations will lead to legal proceedings. This property is in violation." A frigid wave enveloped me. The insidious apprehension that arises upon recognizing your position at the precipice of a cliff. My thoughts accelerated, attempting to comprehend it. The Pine Ridge Homeowners Association was non-existent. No record exists of any new homeowners association in this county. I would have been informed about it. This was unlawful. This was a fraudulent scheme. I approached the gate. My jaw clenched. My heartbeat resonated in my ears. "Leave my premises," I snarled. The bald man's grin broadened. He inclined his head as if he were entertained. "Your consent is unnecessary." He observed the clipboard. "You have 24 hours to comply." His voice became deeper and more frigid. "Alternatively, we acquire the property." I advanced another step toward the gate, my hands tightening at my sides. "My real estate, my territory, my residence." "Attempt it," I murmured between clenched teeth. The bald individual's smile remained unchanged. He remained stationary for an additional prolonged moment before turning and departing. The slender individual trailed behind, the clipboard secured beneath his arm. They entered a black SUV, devoid of license plates, parked at the end of the driveway, and departed. I remained stationary, heart pounding against my ribs, blood seething beneath my skin. This was intimate. I pivoted and strode back to the house, my thoughts rapidly contemplating alternatives. I possessed surveillance cameras. I could examine the tape and potentially extract a license plate from that SUV, if available. Nevertheless, the mere fact that they had progressed this far and possessed documentation whether authentic or counterfeit, indicated that they had conducted thorough research. I retrieved my phone and contacted the county clerk's office. A woman answered after many rings. "Greetings, I am Daniel Evans. I'd like to inquire about a recent filing by the Pine Ridge HOA." She hesitated. "Regrettably, Mr. Evans, there is no documentation of any HOA filing associated with that name." My abdomen constricted. "Are you certain?" "Affirmative, sir." I terminated the call and walked back and forth on the porch. The documents presented to me appeared authentic. Official seals, legal terminology, the complete array. An individual had exerted considerable effort to render it appear authentic. 24 hours. I was certain of one thing. This was not merely a fraud. This constituted a threat, and threats entail repercussions. My phone vibrated in my grasp. I gazed below. A message from an unidentified number. "I will see you tomorrow, Mr. Evans." I clenched my teeth. My thumb lingered above the screen just before I thrust the phone into my pocket. A gust of wind stirred, causing the trees at the boundary of my property to rustle. I remained there for an extended while, observing the tree line, my heart still pounding. I subsequently turned and entered. If they were to return tomorrow, I would be prepared. I was unable to sleep that night, not even for an instant. I reclined in bed, gazing at the ceiling, my heart thundering like a battle drum. Whenever I shut my eyes, their faces appeared, those self-satisfied, haughty expressions, causing a sensation of revulsion. Hayes' frigid smile imprinted itself in my memory, while the keen-eyed clipboard attendant, analytical and aloof, observed me like a predator assessing its quarry. My jaw throbbed from bruxism. I repeatedly examined the scene, attempting to ascertain their origin, the method by which they fabricated those documents, and their anticipated subsequent actions. I meticulously searched through all items that night: county records, community agreements, property boundaries, and other pertinent legal documents I possessed. The glare from my laptop screen strained my eyes as I perused papers in quest of any evidence of Pine Ridge HOA. There was none. No submissions, no registrations, no documentation. It was an utter lie. They possessed nothing, indicating they relied on intimidation and bewilderment, the most ancient ruse in existence. However, this transcended a mere fraudulent scheme. They exhibited excessive organization and confidence. They anticipated my opposition, indicating their readiness for resistance. That rendered it personal. By 4 a.m., I was pacing my living room like a confined beast, my fists clenching and unclenching at my sides. My thoughts often returned to the same inquiry. Was there limit about this matter? I received my answer the following morning. I awoke to the profound roar of heavy machinery, the unmistakable grinding of metal against concrete. My eyes abruptly opened. I hastily from my bed, donned my jeans and boots, and hurried outdoors. My heart raced in my chest, adrenaline coursing through my veins. And there they stood. The imposter officers returned, accompanied by a team of laborers and a bulldozer. The machine's shreds were already incising the perimeter of my driveway, shredding the asphalt as if it were paper. The workmen, for men in high-visibility vests, were congregated, appearing nonchalant, as though engaged in standard road maintenance. One individual wielded a sledgehammer over his shoulder, while another brandished a spray can, delineating new markings on the driveway. "What are you doing?" I exclaimed, sprinting towards them. Hayes, whose name I had now learned, stood slightly aside, hands on his hips, a self-satisfied grin on his face. The individual with the clipboard stood beside him, recording notes as if conducting a property evaluation. Hayes remained unfazed. He faced me, appearing nearly entertained. "You are refusing to comply," he stated, his tone composed and straightforward. "We are asserting our right to confiscate property in accordance with HOA regulations." "I'm not a member of HOA," I exclaimed. My voice reverberated across the trees. I sensed the heat ascending in my face, my hands trembling with fury. Hayes nonchalantly shrugged and extracted a folded sheet from his jacket. He extended it toward me between two fingers as if it were a winning lottery ticket. "Not according to this." I seized it from his grasp and unfolded it. The document was composed of thick, high-quality stock, replete with convoluted legal terminology, and adorned with an official-looking seal. It was an impeccable forgery, reminiscent of something produced by a law firm or governmental entity. However, it was counterfeit. My gaze traversed the text, my heart racing. HOA filing codes, legal citations, and jurisdictional assertions were all fabricated. None of it was authentic. My name appeared on it, accompanied by an official notice of violation and an eviction order. There was even a court stamp at the bottom, an evident forgery to anyone familiar with a genuine one. Without deliberation, I tore the document in half, allowing the fragments to cascade to the ground. Hayes' grin broadened. "That's a felony," he remarked, his tone low and menacing. "We may apprehend you for that." My hands tightened, causing my knuckles to crack. "Leave my property." Hayes advanced, his mirrored spectacles reflecting my visage. He inclined slightly, his lips contorting into a malevolent grin. "You fail to comprehend," he stated gently. "This matter transcends the land. It pertains to control." His tone was subdued, composed, and imbued with a subtle threat, as if he were relishing each syllable. He indicated the building staff. The bulldozer ignited behind him, spewing smoke into the atmosphere. One of the laborers grasped the sledgehammer and swung it lethargically against the edge of the driveway. Concrete fractured upon impact. "By tomorrow, you will possess nothing," Hayes stated. My vision constricted. The heat in my chest ignited intensely. I could perceive my pulse reverberating in my ears. Every instinct urged me to incapacitate him immediately, to seize the sledgehammer from the worker's grasp and obliterate that grin from Hayes' face. Hayes' smile broadened, as if he sensed it, as if he desired me to lose control. He sought to provoke me into making the initial misstep, only to subsequently annihilate me legally. I compelled my hands to relax. "Pack it up," I articulated through clenched teeth. "Now," Hayes chuckled, a deep, resonant sound that unsettled me. He did not acknowledge the workers. He merely stood there, awaiting further developments. The one with the clipboard spoke for the first time. "We have recorded everything," he stated, turning a page and tapping his pen against the clipboard. "Your non-compliance will be documented in the final report." My hands trembled. I directed my attention to the workers. "Do you work for him?" One of the workers faltered, casting a glance at Hayes. "Disregard him," Hayes interjected. "He is not the authority here." The laborer, wielding the sledgehammer, fidgeted anxiously. He appeared youthful, possibly in his mid-20s. His gaze shifted rapidly between me and Hayes. "Continue working and you are trespassing," I stated. "Are you aware of the implications?" The employee exhibited hesitation. Hayes' smile faltered. I advanced. "Leave my property." Hayes observed me for an extended moment. His lips formed a sinister smile. "We shall return." He then turned and departed. The individual with the clipboard pursued. The workman paused for some seconds before proceeding to the black SUV. The engine roared to life. The final image I observed as they departed was Hayes, protruding from the passenger window, his self-satisfied grin still affixed to his visage. I remained stationary for an extended duration, hands quivering at my sides, blood surging in my ears. My driveway was severely damaged, with concrete fragments dispersed over the gravel. They were not deceiving. They were not merely attempting to instill fear in me. This was a communication, and if they believed I would acquiesce, they were about to discover the extent of their error. That concluded the matter. I had reached my limit. They overstepped boundaries, and I was not inclined to overlook it. They believe they have the advantage, capable of coercing me, trampling my rights, and departing with amusement. They were oblivious to the identity of their adversary. What they were unaware of was that I have a security system beyond merely the cameras positioned in the corners of my residence. I possessed something superior. Jake, a former Marine sniper. He was dismissed following a knee injury that rendered him unable to serve actively, although his determination remained unyielded. Jake was one of those individuals who lacked the ability to remain stationary. He required a purpose, a sense of utility. Throughout the years, I had assisted him on several occasions. He was indebted to me. Most significantly, he placed his trust in me. I contacted him that evening. "What is the current state of your aim?" I inquired, my voice subdued. A succinct intermission, superior than previous instances. That concludes my remarks. Jake required no elucidations. He was enough acquainted with me to discern the stress in my voice. If I were to call him, it indicated that something significant was imminent. I was unable to sleep following that call. I devoted the remainder of the night to preparation. I reviewed the security footage and ensured the cameras were directed at the driveway and front gate. I mentally reviewed the local statutes regarding trespassing and the use of force, preparing for the possibility of judicial proceedings. I prepared coffee, consumed it unadulterated, and observed the sunrise from the rear porch. I did not experience fatigue. I felt acute and concentrated. When Hayes and his team returned the following morning, Jake was already in position. They arrived in the identical black SUV, tires compressing the fragmented pebbles of my driveway. This time, they arrived with increased manpower, for individuals clad in work boots and tactical jackets, like hired enforcers rather than a construction team. Hayes was the first to exit. He bore the same self-satisfied face he consistently exhibited, as if contemplating how he would allocate the proceeds from my property. The individual with the clipboard was directly behind him, inserting a pen inside his jacket. Hayes approached my residence with an air of ownership, as if he had already triumphed. He halted at the base of the porch steps and readjusted his sunglasses. I asserted that you were making an error, while positioned in the doorway with my arms crossed. My voice was composed, tranquil, and measured. Hayes exhibited a smile. "Indeed? What actions will you undertake?" I reciprocated the smile. "Not myself, him." A solitary red dot developed on Hayes' forehead. He became immobile. His smile faltered and vanished. His mirrored spectacles refracted the crimson glow shimmering on his skin. Gradually, his head inclined upward as though he might discern the origin of a laser. He was unable to. Jake exhibited commendable qualities. "Exceptionally good. You have 30 seconds to vacate my property," I stated. My voice was incisive and deep, a tone that induces a shiver down the nape of your neck. Or Jake will discover the extent of that helmet's depth. Hayes' eyes expanded in astonishment. His mouth parted slightly, yet no sound emerged. The individual responsible for the clipboard dropped it. It struck the gravel with a gentle thud and raised his hands, palms facing outward. The construction workers retreated gradually, exchanging anxious glances with one another. One of them appeared poised to flee. 10 seconds, I stated. Hayes' jaw contorted into a scowl. He compelled himself to grin, a feeble, fragile expression that failed to illuminate his eyes. "Do you believe you can intimidate me?" He stated, his voice strained. "I do not intend to instill fear in you." I indicated the laser sight. Jake has already completed it. A solitary bead of perspiration traversed Hayes' temple. He retreated one step, followed by another. The clipboard attendant trailed behind, casting anxious glances toward the tree line where Jake was positioned. 5 seconds, I stated. Hayes' jaw tightened. His eyes flickered between me and the crimson dot on his forehead. "Let us proceed," he barked at the crew. They exhibited reluctance. The individual wielding the sledgehammer cast a peek toward Hayes. At this moment, Hayes vocalized sharply. The team relinquished their tools. The man with the sledgehammer allowed it to strike the ground with a resounding thump and proceeded to pace towards the SUV. The individual with the clipboard pursued. Hayes retreated farther. His smile was vanished, supplanted by a more frigid expression. They ascended inside the SUV. The engine ignited with a powerful roar. The tires kicked up gravel while reversing down the driveway. Jake maintained the dot on Hayes' head throughout the duration. Even after the SUV vanished from sight, I could sense the palpable tension in the atmosphere, the gravity of the recent events. The red dot gradually disappeared from my view. I breathed, flexing my hands, sensing the adrenaline diminish sufficiently to maintain my attention. My phone vibrated in my pocket. "Jake, do you require my continued observation?" I grinned. "Not at this time." I descended the driveway and retrieved the clipboard. The document was devoid of content. a performance, an accessory to enhance their legitimacy. The entire situation was a ruse, an illusion crafted to coerce me into compliance. However, they were now more informed. I returned to the house, pausing at the porch steps. The atmosphere was tranquil, too silent. I remained stationary for an extended while, allowing the gravity of the preceding hour to envelop me. Jake had afforded me an advantage this time. However, I was aware that Hayes would not relinquish it easily. Individuals of his disposition do not just retreat after experiencing humiliation. He would return. In the future, it will not merely be a deception. They erred in pursuing me. In the future, I would ensure they experience remorse. Subsequently, I contacted the sheriff's department. My hands were steady as I dialed the number, yet the fury that had been seething in my breast for the past 48 hours persisted, simmering beneath the surface. I was not inclined to overlook this, especially when they attempted to coerce me off my own property. The telephone rang twice prior to the sheriff answering. His voice was composed and deliberate, characteristic of an individual with extensive experience in this profession. He stated, "Sheriff Duncan." "Sheriff, this is Daniel Evans," I stated. "I wish to report an occurrence of trespassing and impersonation." A momentary cessation occurred. "Mr. Evans, please explain the events that transpired." I provided him with a concise account, omitting references to Jake and the sniper, but ensuring to emphasize the critical elements: the counterfeit uniforms, the forged documentation, the threats, and the vandalism. Sheriff Duncan remained largely silent during my discourse. However, I could perceive the escalating stress in his respiration. Upon completion, there was another hiatus. Subsequently, Duncan's tone became more incisive. "Did you mention Pine Ridge, HOA?" "Indeed," I stated. "What is the reason?" "Wait a moment." I perceived the sound of papers rustling, followed by the subdued clatter of a keyboard being written upon. A subdued grumble ensued. "Offensive term. What is the inquiry?" Duncan stated that the name is Hayes. Approximately 6-foot-tall, bald individual wearing mirrored sunglasses. "Affirmative." A subdued exhalation. "You are not the initial one to inquire about him." I adjusted my posture. "What is your meaning?" Duncan stated that there have been grievances. Unregistered homeowners association claims, fraudulent property confiscations, coercive techniques. A sudden exhalation. "However, until today, we have been unable to achieve any lasting results. They never remained in a single location for an extended duration." I reiterated that Hayes and his associate, a slender and sharp-looking individual named Bishop, were present. "That is the one." Duncan stated that both individuals possess outstanding warrants in 2 counties for impersonating law enforcement and extortion. It appears they have been perpetrating this fraud throughout the state. My jaw clenched. Why are they still at liberty? Duncan stated jurisdiction. They have demonstrated ingenuity. Never remained in one location enough long for the allegations to be substantiated. "However, if you possess evidence, I do," I stated. "Surveillance film, the counterfeit documents, and approximately 6 construction workers who are likely to divulge information under pressure." Duncan emitted a subdued giggle. "That will suffice. What is your speed of execution on this matter?" "I will obtain a warrant by the end of the day." "Excellent. Is there any further information I should be aware of?" Duncan inquired. I experienced hesitation. Indeed, Hayes is unlikely to concede readily. Duncan stated, "I believe we will be prepared." I terminated the call and remained stationary for a time, breathing heavily. The serene murmur of the rural landscape enveloped me. I sensed the burden beginning to alleviate, albeit somewhat. However, it was not yet concluded. Approximately 3 hours later, I discerned the sound of tires compressing gravel. I emerged onto the porch and observed 2 black and white sheriff's vehicles approaching the driveway. 4 deputies emerged, their hands nonchalantly positioned on their holsters. Hayes' SUV was parked along the roadside, and he was conversing with Bishop beside it. I observed from the porch as the deputies neared them. "Hayes," one of the deputies responded. Hayes turned, grinning with the same self-satisfied expression that unsettled me. He communicated something to Bishop, who responded with a little nod, then faced the deputies with his hands extended, palms upward, as if preparing to elucidate a minor mistake. The smile was ephemeral. I witnessed the instant Hayes comprehended the situation, precisely when the deputy extended his hand for the handcuffs. His entire body tightened, his mouth agape in protest, but the deputy swiftly subdued him, rotating him and securing the handcuffs around his wrists with a rapid, practiced move. "What is this?" Hayes hissed, twisting his head around. "You're under arrest," the deputy said calmly, impersonating law enforcement, extortion, and destruction of property. "That is nonsense," Hayes retorted. He jerked against the restraints, but the deputy had a tight grip on him. Bishop tried to back away, too slow. The second deputy was already present, securing his arms behind his back and fastening the handcuffs. I strolled down the driveway, hands in my pockets, watching as the deputies placed them into the back of the cruisers. Hayes took sight of me through the window. He did not appear to be angry, at least not at that moment. He looked astonished. "You think this is over?" Hayes said, his voice muffled through the glass. I exhibited a smile. "Next time, try knocking." The cruisers pulled away, kicking up dust as they rolled down the driveway. I stood there, arms crossed, watching until the flashing lights went around the curve in the road. A creeping sensation of relaxation poured over me, but it wasn't complete. Hayes was a cockroach. He'd been doing this for too long, and guys like him don't go down lightly. Sure, he'd sit in a cell for a while, maybe even do some time, but I had a feeling this wasn't the last I'd hear from him. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw Jake's name on the screen. "Need me to keep watching?" Jake's voice was casual, like he was asking about the weather. "Nah," I said. "I think they received the message." There was a pause. Then Jake chuckled. "Still, it could be a good idea to keep an eye on things." "Yeah," I answered, glancing toward the horizon. The sun began to descend, projecting elongated shadows over the trees. The atmosphere seemed oppressive, as if the storm had not quite subsided. I returned the phone in my pocket. Jake was correct. Hayes is now inactive. However, an intuition suggested that this was not yet concluded. I faced the house, ascended the porch stairs, and rested on the railing. The recently restored driveway extended before me. Newly laid asphalt, immaculate lines, in pristine condition. I maintained Jake on speed dial as a precaution.